right. Actually, you just go.
Okay, this question is somewhat related to our topic today, but what is best purchase you've made under $100 recently? And I'm going to go first while you're thinking about it.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Let you off the hook. Okay. There are very few times when a beauty product, a personal care product, lives up to its expectations or lives up to its promises. But I have found one, and I think it's $14.
Please share. Yeah, let's go.
Okay. You know how your heels get kind of cracked, kind of rough sometimes? It's hard. That's an area that's hard to keep adequately moisturized. Okay. Urea foot cream is changing my life.
Wow.
And I didn't even know what urea was. I was like, is that like cow pee that I'm putting on my feet? I was like, what is in that? That sounds like, but I was like, I don't care. It's working. But I looked it up, and it is not, in fact, pee. It is a chemical combination of something like liquid ammonia and liquid carbon dioxide, something like it's made in a lab. There's no pee involved. But what I can tell you is it is making my feet baby smooth.
That's wonderful.
I highly recommend.
All right.
Yeah.
That's something that my mom, I think, could have used when I was growing up.
Yeah?
She had some
She had some rough.
It was like, this is like, I was like, if I know what I know now, back then, it would have been clear to me like, oh, Mom, you were a total hippie rocking barefoot, like basically everywhere for the last 2 decades before I showed up. But yeah, she had some rough heels. Yeah. Anyway, Mom, you're listening to this. I know you are.
Yeah. Get some urea foot cream.
Although I used to massage her feet. I remember that. I remember like putting
Really?
Yeah.
That's
cream
sweet.
on it. Yeah. And just being like, wow, like this is a real foot here. Like that's real.
Yeah.
Don't be embarrassed, Mama.
No.
My best purchase under 100 recently, we really stretched the limits on our main cooking pan at the house for a little too long.
Yeah, I'm aware of this.
And so we upgraded, or not up. We didn't even upgrade. We just got the same pan on Amazon that we got 3 years ago for $30. And the thing is just rocking it. It's just, the non-stick is back.
Yeah, back in action. So you never upgraded to Hexclad and when?
I didn't, I wanted to do the Hexclad. I was on I was getting, the frequency that I was getting hit by their ads during the holidays was high.
Oh, they do some major ad spend.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. I will have Hexclad pans one day, but
yeah, of course.
I'm in a big frugal stage right now. So
yeah, I kind of am too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, $30, $30 pan. I think Megan and I decided when it arrived and we were using it, because she actually placed the order, it was like, okay, this thing lasted us 3 years last time. We could probably spring for a $30 pan every year. Like we don't have to wait 3 years for this thing.
You could spring for one every month if you wanted to go hog wild.
365 days for $30. That's like, what is that? Like 2 cents a day? Like what? Hit me with some numbers over there, Nate.
He's got the calculator.
Anyway, it's inexpensive. So
yeah.
But hey, if the pan's working, it's working. It wasn't working. And I was pretending like it was at all. So, okay, how's that a lead into our topic for today?
Okay, so this topic was inspired by my favorite, Ramit Sethi. I've been super into his podcast recently. I Will Teach You to Be Rich, or I don't know if that's the same. Yeah, I think that's the name of his podcast too. That's pretty much the name of most things he does. But really great money podcast. And he's always talking about $3 questions versus $30,000 questions or something like that. And it's such a great analogy in the money world because so many people are fixated on $3 questions like, should I buy a coffee today? Or, should I buy this $30 pan on Amazon?
Yeah.
Should I get that book, that costs $10? And they're completely missing the big picture questions like, how much of my income should I invest each month? Or how am I allocating my savings?
Right.
Am I saving enough for retirement or for my life expenses or for my emergencies? Or is my housing cost taking too much of my, overall expenses month to month? So these big picture questions are actually what moves things. And, you don't need to sweat the small things. But people are still really fixated on these details. And I was thinking that a lot of the same thing happens in fitness because we get a lot of questions like, what's the best protein powder brand to buy? And
I mean, that's Transparent Labs.
Obvi.
Okay, anyway.
What brand of socks are those? And
Yep.
and it can be fun, to kind of, fixate on the little things. But I thought it would be a good episode to highlight the difference between things that you absolutely should not spend a lot of mental energy on, like make a decision and get on with your life, versus the things that really do add up, compound, and make a big difference.
I mean, I can think of so many examples of this recently where it's like, oh, that question is coming in hot all the time. Or the fact that I just recently had like a couple podcasts that I was a guest on where it was kind of the new year. It was like, hey, what are like the 5 things you actually should be thinking about in, like what are the actual questions that matter? So yeah, let's dig into it. I'd love to hear kind of what's swirling around your head is like, okay, that seems to be a question we get a lot, and is that even worth it?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, here's something that I think people think about in a way that maybe this is a little bit more costly than a $3 question, but it's still one of those things that I feel like people get a little bit misguided when they're making a decision on this. And a lot of that is, how much should I spend on my gym membership? Like, which gym should I join? It's like, okay, I can look at all the options, and like this one has, the equipment, and this one is super cheap. And I feel like there's sort of an overlooked aspect of like, which gym should I join, where people overemphasize maybe the price or the convenience, and maybe to some degree the equipment if they have a little bit of gym experience, but they underemphasize like the vibe and surrounding yourself with people who are going to get you fitter because you're in the right zone with people who are sort of like-minded about maybe pushing you or getting you more to your goals. So that's one thing that popped up for me.
That's cool that you brought that up, because I just had an exchange with somebody a couple days ago on over DM, and basically was somebody who's going to a CrossFit gym and who has been doing CrossFit for a number of years. And I think that there's maybe a number of people out there that are feeling this. It's like the methodology of CrossFit has, I think, maybe lost a lot of its allure to people, because it, over the years, it has been, I don't want to say exposed, but it's just like people are becoming more and more aware. It's like, the intensity of CrossFit was one of the best things about it in terms of helping people achieve results. People were like pushing themselves harder than they'd ever pushed before. And we talk about it on here all the time. It's like effort is probably the most important thing. Giving effort consistently for a long time is what really makes things change. And if you do CrossFit with an unstructured, in an unstructured way, without a lot of safety measures taken, like that's where people run into problems, because they're getting the effort, but then it's so chaotic, or there's so much variance, or there's so much intensity without adequate recovery or good lifestyle practices that people get hurt. And then guess what? You're not given effort anymore. You're just on the sideline. So he was sort of, I don't want to say complaining to me, but he was really like questioning. He's like, is my membership at this gym like worth it anymore?
Yeah.
Like there's such better programs out there. Like he was like, I want to do this different programming. And I'm just like, I'm not sure that their programming is any good anymore. And, he's going to a very well-known CrossFit establishment that's got like a really good reputation. And I don't doubt that they have, thoughtful programming. Matter of fact, at one time, used to program for this facility.
Okay.
But the point, I think, was he was so fixated on the programming.
Yeah.
And I was like, I kind of came back with like, look, I don't think he's like trying to decide if it's worth it to keep going and paying the membership fee. And he listed out his experience there. And in his like description of it, he was like, I love it because like the morning crew, the guys that I go and work out with, they push me, like yada, yada, yada. Like I have a crew and I'm consistent and I do it. But I just don't think it's like optimal for my goals. And like, I kind of want to start maybe like building a garage gym and working out in there and doing it on my own and following a different program. But I was just like, look, I think the way you measure this is, but he was so fixated on the programming and like the actual workouts. I was like, that's not what you're paying for. Like at this point, you're paying for a place where you can go that holds you accountable for time. You have a time slot to show up to a workout. You have options and versatility in when you can go if you miss a class. You have people there that when you're surrounding yourself with, you get pumped up and you push a little harder. Like, so this place is allowing you to give better effort than you might on your own. Potentially you could learn, but that's what it's there for now. And it's got a vibe. You know, I know this gym. I know what kind of environment they've created. I know what it feels like in there. It's like, it's cool. It's kind of a thing. And so, he was really thankful for like that perspective because he wasn't looking at it like that at all. And I was like, happy to share that. And hopefully that helps you make this decision. And you're absolutely right. It's like when looking at a gym, if you're going to a group fitness gym, it's like, don't get obsessed with the programming because the programming will change over time, or you'll lose interest in their programming, or something about programming and your goals will just be misaligned. Mm-hmm. It's like, and they're not going to be able to change the programming to make you happy and all 300 people that go there. Like, no one's ever going to be completely happy. It's like you're there because you believe in the people, the coaches are caring, it's a clean space, it's got a good vibe, it's convenient, it makes you push yourself, it holds you accountable, and it fits within your budget. Like, not like they have the best method, and if you show up to a gym that's group fitness and they're like, our method is the best, our programming is the best, like, then it's more like it's either like a check, they can check the box on decent programming or not, but then move on to like those other factors.
Yeah, well, that was going to be my next one, is like people who, are in a training program, maybe even like Persist, that has different tracks and different options within it. And people get real hung up on like, which is the perfect track for me? Which one should I be in? Should I switch to this other track? And it's like, or should I do this online program versus that online program versus the third option? I'm not saying that people should just bail at the first sign of like, it's not working for me. I think you should stick to something for a decent amount of time just to like get a feel for it. But it is so easy to just go to the next one if it's not working for you, that it's not worth the agony of like picking the perfect one.
Yeah. I mean, I think the same thing applies with like, it's a different set of rules with online programming. And the reason I sort of downplay the importance of it in a physical gym location is that it's just a variable that if you put too much weight on it, it's going to really limit your options. Like if you live in depending on what city you live in, this may or may not be true, but I would guess that most people are in, if you look at where you live and you want to have success with your, your consistency at your gym, you really want to look in a pretty small radius from where you live or where you work. Like outside of like 5 miles from your home, like the further you have to travel to your gym, you reduce the likelihood of being consistent by a certain percentage. And so it's like, okay, if you're going to be successful in your health and fitness journey, you're only looking within 5 miles of your house. How many gyms do most people have within 5 miles of their house if they're not living in like a major metropolitan area? It's like maybe there's 3. Mm-hmm. And then you go to all 3 and like, and they're each going to have their own programming slant. And it's like, you got 3 programming options. Like, this one I didn't like. So it's like, you just take that all the way off the table when the proximity of that gym to your home, the vibe, the culture, and the people are good enough to get you in great shape. Like, don't throw that gym out the window because they don't have like the perfect programming. Whereas online programming, you're right. Like a click of a button and you've got, 10,000 options in front of you. The programming matters a lot more. Like, you're going to be working out in your garage. You're going to be working out in the local big box gym where you can just use the equipment. You get to pick what you want to do. Like, now the programming matters, and the community starts to matter less, or the vibe starts to matter less, because like the vibe of the program is like who's doing the workout online, like on another part of the country, it feels good, but on the day to day, like that's not the thing that's moving the needle for you. You are trying to give effort safely, repeatedly, month after month, year after year. Which program allows that to happen? Smart, thoughtfully designed, balanced programs that have great principles behind them that get you excited to train. Mm-hmm. Now the programming is everything. And to your point, it doesn't mean that you stay in analysis paralysis, like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to figure out what's the best one. Like, go with the one that resonates with you when the messaging resonates. Like, oh, I'm into that. Yeah. And then when you start it, stick to it for 4 to 6 weeks, and which is enough time to sort of evaluate, like, hey, like this is working for me or it's not. You can't figure that out in 1 week. Mm-hmm. You certainly can't figure it out in 1 or 2 days. Like, you need a little bit of time. Do it. 4 to 6 weeks goes by that you're working out. You haven't lost anything. And if at the end of that you're like, this didn't feel right, go to the next one and try that. And so, yeah, so let's move on to the next $3 question.
Okay. This one may be a little controversial. Feel free to fight me. But macronutrient balance of carbs and fats.
Yeah, that is a 2-cent question. Just don't matter.
It don't matter none.
I used to think it mattered so much, like kind of just digging. What is the best? And thankfully, there are people still investigating, these questions in the science, in the evidence-based community. When I was coming up in my undergrad and some graduate school work and in biology and nutritional science, and just like thinking about like, man, people are just not doing studies that like matter. Like the questions that, like there was just not like really relevant stuff I was seeing done. I was like, people need to be testing stuff that like actually is what we're doing out in the field with like fitness coaches and nutrition. And man, have things changed. Like now, like the questions that we all have that were like, all the bro science has just been put to the actual science test. And it's like, oh yeah, that doesn't work. Like we figured that out. It's like, oh, there is no magic macronutrient split. It's matter of fact, it doesn't matter what macros you eat. All that matters is the amount of protein you eat and the number of calories that you consume. And then macronutrients don't really impact fat loss or muscle gain for people. So it is a question that I get less and less these days, thankfully, because the education's getting out there, but it's, hey, what's the right macro split for my, for fat loss? What's the right macro split for, muscle gain? And, it doesn't matter. You can do it anyway. There are some ways that are a little easier simply because of just like the actual like physics of like food and food volume and, you know, satiety. But get your protein right, hit your calories. That's going to be your biggest thing. If you like carbs, then go more heavy on the carbs and lower on the fat. If you like fat, go heavier on the fat, lower on the carbs. Carbs aren't going to make you fat. Fat's not going to make you fat. It's the total amount of each that you eat that will make you fat or not. And so you can really have any options, any choice. It doesn't have to be the same every day. It can be high carb, low fat one day and low carb, high fat another day. Protein stays consistent. Have a good time.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
All right. And then obviously we've got to talk about supplements because that question will not ever go away.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's also one that I get less of, you know. There's few supplements that work. There's a few supplements that are like, okay, these work. There's a lot of supplements that don't have any real good amount of evidence and data behind them to support like that they are really effective. But what I think is really important for people to realize is like the supplement that you take, there's no legal supplement that is out on the market that is going to have a huge, it's going to make a big change in your fitness outcome. These are things that are going to make smaller changes in your fitness outcomes. Smaller to the degree that like you might be the only one to perceive it. Nobody else will even notice. You know, if you start taking like testosterone or some testosterone or anabolic, steroid, everyone's going to notice because those have massive responses to them. If you start taking creatine, I guarantee you after a month of creatine, no one's going to be like, oh, damn, like, what'd you start? What are you on?
Yeah.
It's going to improve your training outcomes by a small amount.
Mm-hmm.
And then those training outcomes, if you keep compounding them consistently over time, you might be able to pack on some extra muscle over a year, 2 years, but it's not going to be this big old thing. So when it comes to supplements, I think we've had a few posts where it's like, these are the ones that work, take these, the rest you don't need to bother. It's like creatine works. If it fits your budget, go for it. Protein powder, whey protein, it's a pretty solid thing to have, especially if you have any challenge hitting your protein targets each day.
Yep.
As long as you digest it well, have at it. And then, there's some micronutrient supplements that might be good to support, health, right? Fish oils, vitamin D if you're deficient in it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, other kind of performance supplements that are kind of like second tier or third tier are, I'm a big fan of beta alanine and citrulline malate. Those things are just in my pre-workout. I take them each day, but that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I saw a question from someone, I think it was a comment on one of our posts, something like that, but it was like, should I have coffee before or after I work out? And I think we get a lot of questions too about like the meal timing, should I train
nutrient timing. That's
yeah.
it. For sure. I got one of those today. It was like, when are you eating this meal? And I posted that picture yesterday on story, which was like a bowl of popcorn and a Ninja Creamy. And it was like, they were like, oh yeah. So like, it's just like, they were asking me like if it was higher calorie and like when it's like higher calorie, right? It's just all about like timing. If you just eat it before or after, like right around your workout, then that's good. And I was like, this nutrient timing thing really just it's not as important as it was sort of once, I think, believed to be. It's like calories, protein, like number one, And then it's like generally food quality is kind of, I don't want to say it's number 2. They're kind of tied. They're very intricately tied together, but like food quality, like getting more whole foods, like these are ways that you're going to be able to hit your protein and your calorie targets more easily, getting rid of processed, like high density calorie foods, blah, 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 like getting more micronutrients. You go down the list and it's like, you get down to like the 4th, 5th, 6th, most important thing for nutrition, you can kind of start to talk about timing. But man, was there such a timing, wave that was going on. It was the fasting, intermittent fasting, the 1 meal a day, like
anabolic
window, 30 minutes after you work. That's like, don't even work out if you're not going to have a protein shake right after you work out, because you just wasted all of that energy or that all your time. And the human randomized control trials basically shows like, well, no, it doesn't really make a big difference. Now, if you're crushing everything in your quantity quality game, and you've dialed in your meal prep, and you're just so consistent, like, and you want to get kind of into the nitty gritty of like nutrient timing, there is some there's something to be gained there, but it's kind of on par with like taking creatine. Like, it's not going to be the thing that like 10x is your gains. It's like, it's going to give you a little extra bump, right? So with food timing, or like nutrient timing, the things that to me actually matter are like, if you can split your protein intake into like kind of 4 equal servings a day, 3 to 5 is kind of shown to be optimal. Maybe 4 to 5 if you can do it, that could be really good. So it's like you're taking in 200 grams of protein a day. Well, and you turn that into 4 servings, like 50 in the morning, 50 at lunch, 50 at the like late afternoon, and then 50 for dinner before bed, or like, a couple hours before bed. Boom. That way you're getting like this sustained protein all day, and you're maximizing your opportunity to like build muscle, versus having like 200 grams at lunch and that's the only time you eat protein. You're still getting a lot of amino acids. You can still build muscle. It just you might be leaving a little gains on the table. There's also like pre and post workout nutrition.
Yep.
The anabolic window of 30 minutes post workout has really been debunked. It's really more like the 5 hours on either, surround your workout time with a 5-hour window. That's when you want to get in nutrition before and after. So if you eat 2 hours before your workout, and then your workout is 1 hour long, then you have another 2 hours on the back end of it to get in your next meal. So it's like kind of hit that 5-hour window with a meal before and a meal after that has protein and carbs and a little bit of fat, and you're kind of maximizing the benefits of your, workout nutrition. On the caffeine thing, there you can get into the nitty gritty of that. Like, when's the best time to have the coffee? I mean, if you want to, you want to have coffee before you train, because caffeine is an ergogenic aid. It is a performance enhancer. And if you have it about 30 minutes before you train, that will kind of get peak concentrations into your blood when you're working out. So, that's when you want to have it. I see people like sipping their pre-workout mixes while they're training. It's just a total waste, because by the time that actually gets into your system and absorbs, and you're like all the bioactive, psychoactive ingredients that are in there are like vibing with you, you're done with your workout. So this is actually not something that you should sip on. You should kind of like, 12 ounces to 20 ounces of water with your thing. There's a certain ratio of water to, powder that you should be using because it's going to help absorb it correctly. And you want to have it about 30 minutes before you train. And you kind of want to just like chug it and get it in. And so that's a timing thing that matters. But again, it matters because it gets a supplement into your system that's going to give you like a 0.5% to 1% benefit. Like, is it that important? So it's not something to like really get all hung up on.
Yeah. How about best workout split?
Yeah, the best workout split is, I think it's an important question, to be asking like in the 6 to 12 month range.
Yeah.
Like it's not like, what should I do this month? Should I switch to I just saw full body was like hot. Now I want to go do this like push pull legs thing next month. And it's like sticking to sort of like a training split for a period of 6 months or more, I think is really wise. And it's not something you should be changing frequently. And why is it even important? Because if you pick a training split that aligns best with your availability to work out, that's what we're looking for.
Yeah.
So if you're somebody who loves to train 6 days a week and you're like, I would love to be in the gym 6 days a week, I'm going to do full body 6 days a week. And you're not really super like, you don't, there's that could be a little bit of a disaster.
Yeah.
Because to hit each muscle group or each movement pattern every single day for 6 days, you might find yourself actually doing too much. And it's like too much frequency on that. But let's say you're a 3 time a week person, like I only have 3 days. Here's another bad example. I only have 3 days a week to train. I'm going to do a body part split. I'm going to do legs on Monday. I'm going to do chest on Wednesday. I'm going to do back on Friday. The following Monday, I'm going to do shoulders and arms. And then finally on the next Wednesday, I'm back to legs. It's like, well, you don't train very often. So in this way, you're only doing legs like every 10th day. It's just not frequently enough for where you're at. So matching the training split, the type of split with how frequently you're going, I think that's important. But there's a lot of ways to do it. Push pull legs, upper lower, regional splits, full body splits, they can all work great. It's sort of like, what do you like? What's got you inspired to go and push hard? And what makes you feel like you recover well enough for the next training session?
Yeah. As you're talking, I'm kind of thinking about this category of question where these things do matter in the big picture, in the long run, as they compound.
Yes.
But people tend to get fixated sometimes on switching them up very frequently. Like, I'm going to change the number of calories I eat every day and it's going to be all over the place. And it's like, it's kind of the equivalent of like day trading versus investing over longer terms.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, what's the best macro split? Well, you probably have a macro split that works best for you. It's not like biologically the best macro percentage. It's just the one that you resonate best with. And you can only figure that out after months of doing it, not after like a week. It's like, oh man, I did high carb this week and God, I got bloated. I'm going to go back to low carb. It's like, yeah, well, if you were eating 100 grams of carbs a day and then you went up to 250 or 300 in 1 week, you're going to feel a little bloated because you're going to retain a little bit more water, mostly in your muscles, but you're just going to feel a little bit fuller. And that's okay. That's not, your body just needs to adjust and adapt. Like I go through these, like when I go through shifts or phases of like adding calories back in or upping certain macros, like I give it lots of time before I make any judgments about how I'm doing with it. Because my judgments early on are always, this is fucking wrong. This is not what is happening in my body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, maybe we should transition to the $30,000 questions.
Yeah.
And what's really going to matter the most over the long term.
Yeah. Well, we've kind of actually covered a lot of them in this thing, but it's like, number one, it's, this calorie protein conversation. So from the nutrition standpoint, it's just like you being able to eat your body weight in grams of protein every day. And then basically through the choices of foods that you're making, you almost can guarantee that you're going to be able to eat the right amount of calories for your goal. Now, that just comes down to an understanding of like what types of foods are going to make you feel full, but also deliver lots of good nutrients to you. This meal that I have in front of me, or these 3 meals that I'm going to eat today, I place it on the table in front of me, and it covers half the table because it's a lot of food, but it doesn't have a lot of calories. Has a lot of protein, a lot of volume, low calories. On the other side of the table, you could put, 3 small snacks that are like a tiny amount of food. Like, oh, it's not a lot of food, but it's packed full of calories, packed full of carbs and fat, packed full of, deliciousness. It's going to be really hard. So learning that and making sure you understand that, that's like a $30,000 investment into your retirement. Movement, activity, base level activity is the next $30,000 investment into your retirement. People are like, which training program should I do? Like, how many workouts should I do each week? I'm like, nope, that's not where I would start. How many steps are you getting every single day? What is your daily activity like metric that you're following? And that means it needs to be objective, because your workouts, you can record results, but how many sessions you do and for how long, it's so variable.
Yeah.
Depending on the week and who you are and comparing, but you getting 10,000 steps a day, that's pretty consistent amongst all people, right? And like what the outcomes of that could look like. And if you go from, I'm only getting 4,000 steps a day, and you go up to 8,000 steps a day, that right there, without changing anything else, could be enough to have you start losing about a half a pound of body fat per week. Which you're like, oh, that doesn't seem like a lot, but like, well, that's 2 pounds a month, and you didn't really have to do anything hard. I mean, you have to make time to go walk, but you'll be surprised at how quickly that just becomes a habit. And imagine if you went from 4,000 to 12,000. Okay, that's a full pound of body fat per week. You're losing 4 pounds a month. In 6 months, you just lost 24 pounds, and you just started walking more. Like, that is mind-boggling. And that will be a tremendous shift in somebody's outlook on their health and fitness. And it's a hell of a lot more you'll get from creatine. Way more. And then you can't discount that once you start implementing this type of very, very achievable and repeatable, behavior, that now you have all the motivation to start doing better on the first part, which is getting your protein and your calories right. And then you have those two things together, and they start to compound, and people are crushing.
Yeah.
The other one is resistance training. People are, there's a lot of talk that, I've certainly talked about this a lot. It's like, our metabolism is built off of, is really a product of our muscle mass, our lean tissue. The more lean tissue you have, the greater your metabolism is. It's a great way to kind of convince people of the importance of this thing.
Yeah.
But the reality is that, like, if you added 2 pounds of muscle to your frame, your daily metabolic output, your calorie spend wouldn't go up by like hundreds of calories. It would go up by like tens of calories. It's not like you're suddenly like unlocking, if I add 2 pounds of muscle, I can eat 3 donuts every day and it's a wash.
Right.
It's not like that.
No.
But it is extremely important when you're trying to do the thing that many people are trying to do, which is reduce body fat and maintain a lean physique. It's like all of that's going to require you to kind of lose. And you do not want to lose muscle. You want to maintain, and if you can, build muscle over time, slowly, because when the body fat comes off, that is what's going to give you a form and a shape and a function that you love, that you're like, now I can use my body in a way that feels great.
Yes.
People love to see body fat come off. They also love to feel strong.
Yeah.
And feeling strong is potent medicine when you're in this fat loss phase. So that's why that is a big pillar. And it could be as simple as 3 times a week going into the gym and hitting a full body resistance training program on top of your steps, on top of your, high protein, high performance, high volume foods to go with it.
Hell yeah.
And then the last one, I'm sort of just like, make your, it's really like try and create rhythm in your life. Doing more of the things, more things at the same times every single day.
Yes.
And I like to start talking about sleep as the place to anchor a lot of what you do, because people's daytime routines can often be really routine. Like they can, and habitual. It's like, I go to work at this time, I end up taking lunch at this time, I go to the gym at this time, certainly Monday through Friday. But the part that gets a little inconsistent for a lot of people is, what time do I go to bed and what time do I wake up? During the week, they got to wake up at this time, but they're oftentimes pushing the bedtime to different, it's just inconsistent. And then on the weekend, I don't have to wake up early, so I sleep in, which then I stay up later. And it's like, then there's this constant inconsistency in the bedtime window that you're sleeping. So that is a place to look at. Like, that's a big investment. If you decide, I'm going to go to bed at 10 p.m. every night and wake up at 6 a.m. the next day, and you can do that consistently, let's call it like 26 days out of the month, every month.
Yep.
That has a very powerful impact. Not because like now you're getting more sleep and you're going to get all these health benefits from more sleep. Because you're consistent with your sleep, all of the other choices that you make from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed are going to be much more consistent and aligned with your health and fitness goals.
Yes.
You're going to be more likely to make better decisions with food. Mm-hmm. You're going to be more likely to get more steps in and be on top of your steps because you're going to have more energy. And you're going to be more likely to hit the gym consistently because, again, you're slept, recovered, and your muscles feel good. So it's really the one thing that I've mentioned that has just like carry over to all the others.
Yeah. I follow someone on Instagram and I just saw in her story that she said the most profound thing that's happened to her is she just bumped up her sleep from like between 6 and 7 hours a night to like 7 to 8. And just that one change, she's like, my injuries are healing. I'm so much more, like everything got so much better. Yeah.
Yeah. So those are it. So now you know where we're hearing the most frequent $3 questions around fitness and what your $30,000 investments into fitness can look like. And I hope that you all take that to the bank.
Love it. I love it.
All right. We'll see you all next time.
We'll see you.